Hey everyone, welcome back to Sip and Talk. I'm Joe.
And I'm Sunny.
And we are back for another deep dive.
Another week, another deep dive.
So Sunny, last time we were talking, you were having some adventures in the kitchen.
Oh, you know me, always up to something.
Yeah, always some sort of culinary experiment going on.
Well, this time it was sourdough.
Oh, yeah.
And let's just say my starter is still a work in progress.
Okay.
I'm not quite ready to open Sunny's sourdough bakery just yet.
All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that at least the smoke alarm is no longer going off.
Yeah, we're all safe. That's the important part.
That's the important part. Okay, so picture this. You're on TikTok, right? You're posting your latest dance or whatever, you're sharing your deepest thoughts, and bam, the platform is banned.
Gone just like that. It's a digital earthquake for sure, and that's exactly what's going down in the U.S. right now. The Supreme Court just upheld this ban on TikTok, and millions of American users are scrambling to find somewhere else to go online.
Xiaohongshu, you ever heard of it?
Xiaohongshu rings a bell. Is that the one everyone's calling red?
That's the one. It's Chinese too. But the wild part is they seem to be kind of into it.
Into it. Like they actually prefer the stricter rules.
Yeah. It's like they're relieved to have someone else curating their online experience.
Huh. That's wild. I guess after years of the American internet's anything goes vibe, maybe some people are craving a little more order.
Maybe so. They're trading freedom for peace of mind.
And a little less chaos, too, right? I mean, the American internet can be a pretty overwhelming place.
Oh, totally. It's like a constant stream of noise and drama.
Exactly. So maybe this Red app is like a digital escape, a place where they can relax and connect without all the negativity.
A totalitarian Disneyland is one article called it.
Haha, totalitarian Disneyland. That's a good one. It's like experiencing the control without the actual consequences.
Right. It's like stepping into a perfectly manicured garden where everything is just so...
safe. Predictable.
Yeah, both of those.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Our sources also point out how actual Chinese users aren't exactly thrilled about this whole situation.
Makes sense. For them, censorship isn't some fun little experiment. It's daily life.
Exactly. They've had to learn how to navigate the system for years using slang and code words to avoid the censors.
So they're not really welcoming these American refugees with open arms.
Not exactly. It's more like, welcome to the club, but don't make a fuss.
So we've got this bizarre situation where Americans are kind of romanticizing this controlled environment.
Well, Chinese users are just trying to live their lives.
And the question is why? Why are some Americans so drawn to this stricter online experience?
That's what we're going to try to figure out in this deep dive. We're going to unpack all the different angles, the psychological factors, the cultural differences, the whole enchilada.
It's like a digital culture clash playing out in real time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's raising some big questions about the future of the internet itself.
So buckle up, deep divers, because this is where it gets really interesting.
All right, so we've got Americans flocking to this Chinese app, Red, which is way more censored than TikTok, and they're actually enjoying it.
It's a total head scratcher, right?
Yeah.
But when you really dig into it, it starts to make a little more sense.
Okay, break it down for me.
Well, think about the American internet for a sec.
Yeah.
It's basically a free-for-all, right? Everyone's screaming, trying to be heard.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it. It's exhausting just trying to keep up with all the drama.
Right. It's a trade-off for sure. And it's not one that everyone would be willing to make.
But for some people, it's worth it.
Absolutely.
The TikTok exodus of 2025.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
This massive shift in the social media landscape. And I think what's really interesting is the reactions we're seeing from American users particularly.
Yeah, especially the reactions to censorship on Red.
Exactly.
It's like some people are finding it fun, which is just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah. How do we even begin to understand that? I mean,
Right.
It's a bit of a head-scratcher, I think, to grasp this. We really need to consider how differently censorship is perceived in the U.S. compared to China.
Yeah, I mean, here in the U.S., it's pretty much seen as like a violation, right?
Exactly. A violation of free speech, a fundamental right.
Yeah.
But in China, it's been a part of the online experience for so much longer. It's almost like a built-in feature.
Yeah, it's like just the background noise of the internet over there.
Exactly. So for American users, experiencing censorship on Red might be less about the actual restrictions and more about just the novelty of it all.
Like encountering a cultural quirk almost.
Exactly. Something they've never experienced before.
Right.
And because it's happening in this contained online space, it doesn't feel like a real threat to their freedom.
Yeah, like they're tourists visiting a totalitarian Disneyland, as some have called it.
That's a great analogy.
It's a good one, right?
I think it really highlights an important point about how this whole situation is being framed, for some Americans, This isn't a serious social or political issue. It's like a unique cultural setting.
Almost like a game.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they're playing this game of how much can I get away with before they catch me?
Exactly. And it's almost like a badge of honor to get your post deleted or your account blocked.
It's wild.
It is wild.
I mean, they're deleting posts, accounts are getting blocked, and some people are like, oh, this is entertaining.
I think part of that fun aspect also comes from the fact that for a lot of American users, Red offers a break from the constant political battles they're used to on platforms like Twitter or Facebook.
Yeah, it's like they're exhausted from all the fighting.
Exactly. So the censorship, in a strange way, creates this sanitized environment where they don't have to engage in those debates.
So it's not just the novelty of censorship, but also the appeal of a less politically charged online experience.
Right, kind of escape from the usual. And this ties into something else that's been discussed, this idea of Orientalism. You know, this fascination with censorship on Red, this framing of it as fun or quirky.
Right.
Some critics are arguing that it plays into this romanticized view of China and its authoritarian system.
So instead of recognizing the very real restrictions on freedom of expression that Chinese citizens face every day, some American users are almost glamorizing the censorship.
Exactly. And that's where things get a bit more complicated because while it might be entertaining for some to kind of dabble in this censored world, it's important to remember that for many people in China, this is their reality.
Yeah, it's a sobering thought.
It is.
It makes you wonder how those American users would react if they actually had to live under those restrictions, not just experience them as a temporary diversion.
Absolutely. And that's something we need to keep in mind as we delve deeper into this story, because it's not just about TikTok or Red.
Right.
It's about these larger questions of online freedom, cultural differences, and how we engage with information in a globalized world.
All right, well, let's unpack that a bit further.
Yeah.
I'm already feeling like I need another sip of my drink. How about you?
Let's refill our glasses and dive into the heart of this issue.
I just want to give another shout out to Micky from Mickytolife. His channel is a treasure trove of inspiration, and he's a huge Sip&Talk fan.
Absolutely. Make sure to check him out and maybe even share your awesome podcast intro with him once you've created it. So we've been talking about this almost paradoxical reaction to censorship on Red. But before we go any further, I think it's important to give some context to those who might not be totally up to speed on this whole TikTok saga.
Yeah, good point. Not everyone is as obsessed with this as we are.
Exactly. So let's rewind a bit.
Back to the beginning.
TikTok, wildly popular short-form video app.
Oh, yeah. Everyone and their grandma is on TikTok these days.
Right. But the U.S. government has some major concerns about its Chinese parent company, ByteDance.
Right. And those concerns are mainly about
data security.
Data security.
Yeah, the big one.
Okay, so basically the U.S. government is worried that ByteDance could be collecting tons of user data and that this data could end up in the hands of the Chinese government.
Exactly. And it's not just a hypothetical concern.
Right.
China's national intelligence law actually requires companies to cooperate with the government in providing data if requested.
Oh, wow. So it's not just like a conspiracy theory.
No, it's written into their law.
Wow. Okay, so that's a little unsettling.
It is a bit unsettling.
And I guess that explains why the U.S. government is taking such a hard line with this whole sell or be banned ultimatum.
Exactly. They're not messing around. The deadline is January 19th.
Which is
just 2 days away.
2 days away.
Yeah.
So with this impending ban looming over TikTok, it's no surprise that users are looking for alternatives.
Right. And that's where Red comes in.
Enter Red, another Chinese app.
Gaining popularity fast, especially among American users.
Yeah, it seems like everyone's flocking to Red.
It's the new hotspot.
But it's not just a TikTok clone, right?
No, it's not. It operates under a completely different set of rules, a different cultural context. And that's creating this really fascinating clash of perspectives.
Especially when it comes to censorship.
Exactly. We've been talking about how some American users are finding it fun, but let's break down how censorship on Red actually works.
Oh, how does it actually work?
Well, it's much more than just deleting a few controversial posts.
Okay.
Red has a very sophisticated system of content moderation that goes way beyond what we're used to in the U.S.
So they're not just like looking for curse words or something?
No, they have algorithms that scan for keywords, images, even subtle cues that might violate their guidelines.
So it's not just about what you explicitly say, but also about like the underlying message or intent.
Exactly. And what's even more interesting is that the censorship on Red is often very subtle.
Subtle.
It's not always about outright bans or deletions.
Okay.
Sometimes it's about limiting the reach of certain posts or making them harder to find. It's like a shadow ban, but on a much larger scale.
Wow, that's kind of insidious.
It is a bit insidious, this invisible hand shaping what users see and experience.
Yeah, it's like they're being manipulated without even realizing it.
And this subtle approach to censorship might actually contribute to why some American users find it fun.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's not this overt, in-your-face kind of restriction.
Right.
It's more like a puzzle to figure out a challenge to see how far you can push the boundaries without getting caught.
But they're trying to hack the system.
Exactly, but in a cultural sense rather than a technical one.
So they're trying to understand the rules of this new game.
Yeah, the unspoken codes of conduct that govern this digital space.
Which I guess is part of the appeal, right?
I think it is. It's not just about the novelty of censorship. It's about the challenge, the intellectual stimulation of trying to navigate this unfamiliar terrain.
So it's almost like they're treating censorship as a form of entertainment.
It's a strange way to look at it.
It is strange, but I guess it also speaks to that human desire for exploration.
Right, for pushing boundaries, for finding new ways to engage with the world.
But it's also important to remember that this exploration comes with real consequences for people in China who live under these restrictions every day.
Absolutely. That's the other side of the coin that we can't forget about.
And that brings us to the ethical implications of this whole situation.
Right. This is where things get really complicated.
Because this whole TikTok exodus and the rise of Red is raising some serious ethical questions.
Absolutely. Questions about online freedom, cultural sensitivity, and the responsibility we have as users in this ever-evolving digital landscape.
Are we as American users kind of normalizing censorship by treating it like a game?
But I think it's important to at least think about the possibility of harm. We can't just ignore the restrictions that people in China face every day.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in the totalitarian Disneyland aspect of it all.
Exactly. But for many people, this isn't a game. It's their life.
It is. I think that's where empathy becomes really important.
Absolutely. We have to try to understand this from different points of view, not just our own. But it could also be an opportunity.
An opportunity? How so?
Well, think about it. If we have all these different online spaces, it means we have more choices, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Like maybe instead of trying to force everyone to use the same platforms with the same rules, we could have platforms that cater to specific needs and values.
So like platforms that prioritize privacy or freedom of speech or whatever's important to you.
Exactly. And that could actually lead to a more diverse and innovative internet overall.
I see your point. But wouldn't that also make it harder to govern the internet? Like if it's all split up into a million different pieces.
That's the challenge for sure. And it's something we're going to have to figure out as we move forward.
So basically the future of the internet is a giant question mark.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But hey, a question mark is better than a dead end, right? At least it means there's still potential for things to change and evolve.
True enough. We can't just think about our own little corner of the internet. We need to think about the global impact of what we do online.
Absolutely. And that's especially important now with a new U.S. president coming in. Who knows what will happen with TikTok?
It's a real nail-biter, right?
Will they really ban it? Will TikTok be sold to an American company?
So many questions.
This isn't just about TikTok either. It's about how governments around the world are going to handle social media companies, data privacy, and online freedom.
So what can people listening do to stay informed about all this?
Stay curious. Keep asking questions and don't be afraid to challenge things. Read articles from lots of different sources, listen to podcasts like ours, and talk about these things with your friends and family.
Maybe even try baking your own sourdough bread. Just be careful not to burn the house down.
Good advice. Always be prepared for the unexpected, both in the kitchen and online.
Well said. Well, that about wraps up this episode of Sip and Talk. We hope this deep dive into the TikTok situation was insightful and made you think.
Thanks for listening, everyone. And remember, this conversation is far from over.
But hey, that's what deep dives are all about. Making you think, making you question, making you see the world in a whole new way.
So until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.
And keep diving deep.